Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual FRB Tech Fair. On behalf of the entire Mphasis team, we wanted to thank you for being here today with us. To help you navigate through the virtual event a bit, I just wanted to point out that everyone just came from our lobby and have now entered our main hall section of the event platform. Here is where the main events will take place, like today's keynote session and panel discussions. Later, we will ask everyone to go back to the lobby to explore a bit. And there you'll find our exhibition hall where we have 4 booths set up for you. You can visit and participate in live demos later in the day. Towards the end of the event, we will all head over to the networking lounge to get to know each other a bit better, have some fun, and play games for a chance to win some cool prizes. I also want to point out that in the main lobby, there's a help desk, which you can visit at any time, and someone there will help you visit with any technical issues you might be facing. You can engage with us by clicking on group chat, where we encourage you to submit your questions throughout today's session. We'll either have someone answer your questions live or have subject matter experts respond back to you in the chat window. At the bottom of the navigation bar, you will also see an icon to view an agenda for today, as well as feedback icon, where we encourage everyone to please share your feedback after each session is over. Also, you should already be muted by default, but as a friendly reminder, please check frequently that your microphone is on mute at all times. Okay, thank you everyone. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker, DK Sharma, CEO at Workplace Credit and ex-CIO for Citigroup's international consumer business, including Mexico and all of Asia and Europe. DK's experience with core banking platforms coupled with modern technologies enables a practical view of how companies in the BFSI space can evolve from their legacy systems to digitally enabled platforms economically and efficiently. He has an in-depth experience in developing and deploying modern technologies such as cloud, APIs, and microservices to conversational and RPA AI solutions and big data technologies to solve business problems in banking and financial services. Okay, thanks everyone. Now over to you, DK. Take it away.
Thanks, Ryan, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you guys today. At the very outset, I wanted to say that core systems migration are hard but rewarding. I can say that with some experience, as I've done over 30 of them. On reflection, all of them were incredibly fruitful and got better and better as we baked in the learnings from one migration after the other. I was told by the team that you are in the middle of one such migration as we speak. So it's my pleasure today to share with you some of my experience and wish you really all the best as you undertake your journey in what can be a pretty fulfilling but complex experience for a lifetime. So to start with, I mean, why do we do these migrations given the complexity that is involved? The simple answer is that there are some really significant benefits around some key themes of simplification, better time to market, reduction of risk, uh, really a big focus on customer centricity, which I know is very near and dear to your hearts as you pursue really some of your marquee clients. So you have a really marquee client base, and so enabling you to become very customer centric is clearly, I'm sure, a big objective of yours. Then cost reduction, be it in operations, technology, or middle office. Uh, I would also say that reporting, which is a key part of a responsible bank, becomes easier as you have a better core banking platform. And as I look at the world's focus is getting more and more onto digital, and especially post COVID, you want to be digitally native and you want to make sure that a lot of your operations are supported digitally. So digital transformation is in general supported by some kind of a core transformation, either a migration or an extensive API enablement. The other part, which I also feel is which happens as a result of some of these migrations, is you get into more and more into the space of real-time posting, and that has a significant impact into simplifying your reconciliation and servicing capabilities. That said, in any migration, there are certain inherent risks, and it is inherently a risky kind of exercise. But the objective is that how can you have a bunch of mitigating controls so that your inherent risk becomes reduced to manageable risk. And some of the obvious risks to manage are program delays, and history is replete with examples of programs that were supposed to have lasted for a year, went for 2 years, and so on and so forth. So obviously, very close thing to watch and ensure that the program is kind of completed on time. And associated thing is managing scope to make sure that that is done in time. Data mapping issues. When you are doing a migration, you are dealing with a whole bunch of data moving from one platform to the other. While I would say that it's a concern, it can also be a big enabler, as I will shortly cover. But you can do, if you don't do this data mapping well, then that can be a significant risk. As you migrate your portfolio from one system which has been there for many, many years, over time things get inbuilt, which even the business sometimes doesn't know that exist, and they are applicable for your customer portfolio. And when you do the migration, you discover that there is suddenly some missed functionality. So that also is an inherent risk which you need to be aware of. And then some performance issues post migration, customer communication issues, and last but not the least, you are managing a lot of data from one platform to the other. So you have to be very careful and cognizant of any type of potential data breaches that could happen. So you have to be very watchful. So as we go forward, I would like to share some of the best practices that potentially help us derive the benefits and avoid some of the challenges that I kind of referred to. And the first thing I would talk about is non-technical. It is cultural. And in many of the migrations that I have been involved with, the ones that have worked the best are those where they are treated not as technology initiatives, but as clear business initiatives. And they work best when there is a very clear business sponsorship and an ongoing governance cadence. One of the best initiatives that I'm very proud of that we ran successfully was when we took 7 businesses in Asia and we took them and migrated them to a common platform, soup to nuts, across customer communication channels, customer interaction channels, analytics platforms, core banking platforms, core credit card platforms, risk systems, underwriting systems, and we migrated them from a variety of disparate platforms for customer portfolios in excess of million customers. And we moved them to a standard go-to platform in a matter of less than 2 years for 7 businesses. And that was done truly as a joint effort across business, tech, ops, and with an overall leadership and sponsorship that was driven by the business. So a lot of positivity was brought by the business sponsor who worked on ensuring that the scope was controlled, the trade-offs were made logically, and there was an absolute lack of any finger pointing culture because problems will happen if there is a culture of accountability and helping each other and resolving issues when they arise. I would submit that no matter how complex a problem, it can be solved. And the example that I just gave you was clear testimony to that. So 7 platforms in less than 2 years across multiple different aspects of a core banking system. So the second thing which I would say from a best practice perspective is discipline on data. Garbage in is garbage out. Migrations are a huge opportunity to get better data in your core. Again, speaking from experience, regulators love good data coming from core systems without a lot of massaging and inexplicable transformations that they cannot understand. And a typical bank has a lot of it because what happens is that there are data flows from core banking systems to interim data marts to subsequent data marts to risk data marts to final reporting. And in that whole process, it's very hard to show the lineage appropriately. And there's a whole bunch of transformations get done on assumed values, missing values, and that really irks regulators. So missing fields and default values should be managed down, and migrations should be subject to intense data quality matrix reviews. So there should be a data czar that is appointed who's publishing such matrix to a governance team. And we must make sure that all of the data from a legacy platform is archived for near posterity, because believe you me, there will be times when you'll need access to that. So there will be situations and you have to make it usable because if you take data and just dump it on archive tapes and it's very hard to access that, then it can be a bit of a challenge. So try and see if there are means by which you can easily access the data, not by using the core's old systems capabilities, but maybe by through a data mart or others. Simplification is critical. There are huge advantages of a reduced and manageable footprint of applications. However, the thing to watch is do not keep old systems because a piece of functionality or a small set of customers that for whatever reason could not be migrated. And that will actually cause a whole bunch of additional complexity and error. On hindsight, we didn't do such a good job in my prior life on one such migration where we ended up simplifying just the very core and not a lot of ancillary systems. And we kept those going. And in large part, many of that functionality was replicated in the new ecosystem. Now, that may not be the case in your case, but just bear in mind that that could be something worth watching out. It causes a lot of maintenance headache and causes a lot of expensive legacy debt that you need to continue carrying on. We must simplify and streamline business processes. Things like account opening, updates, make them digital, make them zero ops. One of the best experiences was when we implemented instant account opening. And it was really a pleasure to see that we could have a customer come into the branch within 15 minutes at that time, or actually no, within 7 to 8 minutes, one could come in, be onboarded and get like within 15 minutes, he could walk out with a debit card, which was imprinted in the branch. Now, that may not be required for you. I'm just giving an example that instant account opening is a big wow for clients who come into the branch or may apply digitally. When you apply digitally now on banks, you can get instant account opening done and should be the way to go forward. The other part to remember is that migration should not be a one-time activity, right? You migrate to, let's say, IBIS, and then you allow that to become by itself obsolete is not a good idea. So the business should start thinking about making sure that on an ongoing basis, there is a cadence of ensuring sticking to the latest versions of the software, so that you don't end up creating every 8-9 years massive programs. There should be a cadence of timely upgrades that is built into the ongoing technology program. So some of the key benefits that I wanted to call out, and really make sure that the people understand, because when you're going through what is a very difficult process, sometimes you end up like losing sight of the picture. So I've been there, done that. So wanted to make sure that all of you probably already know it, but I would just still want to call out that, look, migrations can really help you make very customer centric. More modern platforms manage core customer data way better than legacy platform. Be it a single CIF, be it a ability to have a bunch of whole additional set of attributes that can drive cross-sell or better risk management. Again, talking about legacy, we would have multiple John Does in a CIF. And almost all of the legacy platforms, when we use them to migrate, we put them to a single John Doe. So a very simple thing, but creating a unique customer ID and ensuring that there's no duplication, and as a result of which, full 360-degree view is established, as well as on an ongoing basis when you do things like address changes or any of those updates, they just happen, right? So it's obvious, but many times it's just not there until you do some of these data cleanups associated with the migration. We can actually use the migration as an exercise to reach out to clients to get some extra data that maybe historically be missing. And I've been part of programs where we used our relationship managers who use this exercise, because communication typically goes out and you can get additional information where the information may be missing. So it provides the momentum to do a cleanup. Use it. I think we must make sure that happens. The other part where the modern banking platforms are giving you a better capability of what I call as Lego blocks. So IBIS, for example, does provide many of its capabilities as APIs through what they call as Code Connect, which FIS, I personally know, is heavily investing in, and is building those Lego blocks that allow you to do this composition of customer journeys and customer 360-degree views and a whole bunch of smart interactive queries. So customer centricity is significantly enhanced. And when you take like an IBIS with some packages that do things like pricing, then all of a sudden you can do very rich and maintainable set of configurable capabilities that let you drive product and pricing arrangement with your clients in a best-in-class fashion. So I know in one of our businesses in Mexico, relationship pricing was a big deal. And it was, and in many places, based on where I worked, you couldn't do relationship pricing. You pretty much did account level pricing. Or if you did relationship pricing, you did it by duct tapes, where you sort of maintain a lot of end user computing to somehow manage to keep the relationship, the pricing relating to things like if you have balance more than 300,000, you get 50 basis points on your wealth management fee and things like that. And you couldn't really do that at scale. But with some of the capabilities that I'm talking about, you can do them at scale and very in a very transparent fashion with full customer communication and ability to trace and tell why somebody was charged, what he was charged. So there's no revenue leakage as well. So we should expect post these implementation a significant reduction in how we introduce new offers, introduce new journeys, and what maybe some people call a two-speed architecture, where you can actually, these APIs can help you do a lot of front-end development, digital experiences development without any dependence on the core backend per se. And the backend can potentially be upgraded once or twice a year, right? A lot of modern banking platforms support real-time posting, and legacy mainframe platforms do what is called as memo posting and then a batch repost. And things like funds availability, account updates are either not available in a real-time basis, or they're available with some technical workaround, which can potentially cause reconciliation issues and customer service issues when these things break. So when you have a real-time transaction processing capability, it significantly makes sure that it significantly enables you to consistently deliver these capabilities around instant availability of funds, instant availability, instant updates and things like that. In general, a better practice to have a truly 24/7 transaction posting and update engine. The big point with data is that you will find that once you have better data, your risk in reporting reduces. The previous company that I used to work for got a consent order because the data was not good. I would say that use this opportunity to ensure that your downstream reporting system can leverage better data that comes post your migration. That itself will be a big win for the organization as you do all types of regulatory and financial reporting without having to worry about data integrity issues and things like that. So systems migration, such as what you are currently in the midst of, will allow you to make your data to be as close to the source systems and systems of record with minimal mapping. Again, very important to ensure that we do minimal mapping and transformation. And plus, a lot of data capabilities will allow your core data to be augmented with a whole bunch of additional data to really deliver a whole bunch of additional rich insights that would be of tremendous value. So how does one manage risk reduction overall? Because there are huge benefits, there are some risks, and there are, as I made the point earlier, you can have the residual risks to be significantly manageable. So what are those key practices? So the answer in my mind is simply relentless execution against a set of good routines. One of the big things which I will highlight is very thorough user acceptance testing at things like journey level, not at individual function or a capability level, running across logical business days. So what you do something and make sure that's reflected in a statement. It is done, year-end posting and all is checked. That's obvious, but just I'm calling it out that people often test at an individual function level and do not look at the overall picture. And one must make the user journeys, which will then have to be incorporated in a test plan. The other important point, again, based on learning, is that we must make sure we test on a converted data. So if, let's say, you're moving from a Fiserv to IBIS, I would say do as much of testing on a fully converted data than on a non-converted test system. It just brings out things which may be unforeseen. A lot of automated regression testing is important. That there's a bunch of test scripts which are running in automated way, with every test cycle. And one more thing which I would suggest very strongly is that do what we have done successfully in the past, and we called it parallel testing, where what we did was we take a starting point of, let's say, a legacy platform, convert it to the new platform, and apply a whole bunch of transactions as they came through in the old platform. Apply the same to the new platform. Let both the platforms curate those transactions and process them, and then take the results and compare automatically, and do that repeatedly. And it does require some investment. It does require some thinking. But if you have done that, you will find that there will inadvertently be some differences, and many of those differences may be acceptable, but at least what's the reason for those differences and what you do about them, and you can find them out upfront, right? If possible, do some pilot testing even in a lab environment. I know you guys are going for a big bang over a weekend, and big bang has its advantages because you get done and you're over with. But just be very careful and make sure that you can do some pilot user testing. Plan for some additional capacity in the implementation phase. When you are 30 to 50% additional capacity around your call center and back office is probably a good idea. And I would say that to offset the cost that might happen, invest upfront in automating some of those. Can we do customer interactions through chat or through automated chatbots if possible, so to kind of manage that cost. A very close watch on customer complaints following the migration. And these are some of the things which, if done well, can really substantially manage the risk to a level where it can be, pretty acceptable. Everything which you do will have a risk. There's huge benefits there. The risk can be managed down, and this pattern has been done, many times over, and ultimately comes out to good execution and use of a lot of tooling. I would say the rewards at the end of the journey are manifold. So I would say sit back, take a deep breath, execute, and enjoy the ride. It'll be a lot of fun. So over to you, Ryan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DK. Okay, let's now move on to our next section of the event, a rendezvous with Raj, how to manage core transformation successfully. It's my pleasure to introduce today's panelists, Raj Sampranam, SVP and CIO of Chicago-based Byline Bank, one of the top SBA lenders in the nation and ex-head of BI and analytics for Banco Popular, Puerto Rico. Raj is closely involved in Byline's mergers and acquisitions and responsible for the overall technology and digital strategy and IT operations. He has led several banking system integrations and conversions, and he successfully completed Byline Bank's core systems conversion in 2019 from Fiserv to FIS. We also have with us today Sri Kumar Ramanathan, SVP, Head of Industry Solutions Group at Mphasis. Sri leads a team of domain experts and solution architects to build and support solutions and frameworks targeted toward large enterprises. Welcome now, Raj and Sri.
This is apparently the most used sentence. You are on mute, or are you on mute? So welcome to the session, and welcome, Raj. Thank you for joining us. I will just take a couple of minutes to introduce myself, and then, although Ryan did a good job of it, and then hand it over to you, Raj, to introduce yourself in your own words, and then maybe we can start talking about the session. I head the portfolio group and Mphasis. Basically, our team helps the sales team as well as delivery team in understanding the customer's needs and stitching the right kind of solution for them. So that's my job. I've been in the financial services and technology industry for longer than I want to be. I have like 30 years of experience in this. I used to be CIO at Citi. We had a very good talk by DK, who used to be my boss before. And I was part of the 7 platforms that he talked about, bringing it together. So that was a great experience. With some background in core migration myself. And I'm very happy to have Raj today. Raj has done specifically migrations in the context of very similar to what First Republic Bank is going through, and hopefully we'll hear more from it. Raj?
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much, Sri, and thanks, Ryan, for the nice introduction. He said it all. Hello, everyone. My name is Raj Sampurnam. I'm CIO for Byline Bank, a Chicago-based commercial bank. So it has over 46 locations in Chicago and 1 branch in Wisconsin. As Ryan mentioned, we are number 2 lender in the nation in SBA lending and number 1 in Illinois and Wisconsin. Said that, similar to Sri, like I spent most of my career in financial industry. Before Byline, I worked in Banco Popular for 15 years, and I've been with Byline since 2017. So that's a brief introduction. So Sri.
Thank you, Raj. I think in the previous talk, DK kind of went through the very broad, issues which we need to be aware of in a migration, and also gave us all the benefits of going through the pain of migration. It's always, when legacy systems are around for a long time, the technology debt increases quite a bit, and it slows you down. Today's need is agility. Today's need is ability to respond to your customer requirements in a very quick manner. And in order to accomplish that, someday you have to clean it up and replace the core. And that's the journey that First Republic is going through. And you yourself have gone through multiple such journeys. And maybe you want to give your thoughts in terms of what are the things that one should be watchful for, and what are the things that you would consider while doing a migration of this sort.
Certainly, Sri. So obviously, Byline grew by acquisition, and then I gone through several integrations, but two major core conversions I would like to highlight here. One was in Banco Popular. I did Pfizer to FIS IBS migration in 2002, and then Byline migrated from Pfizer signature core to FIS IBS in 2019. So obviously, it's going to be a long, tedious process, at least anywhere from 9 months to 1 year, based on how many systems you are migrating. I was hearing what DK was saying, and then I can resonate everything what he mentioned. I've gone through that twice, and as recently as 2 years ago. The key things I would mention here. We can talk in detail, but the main things I would mention right from the beginning that we have to watch for is obviously the data mapping, which he highlighted. Data mapping, the data management aspect of it, and one other important aspect I would say is access provisioning. So that has to be done early on. Testing, rigor in testing, and training, obviously, that's another important aspect of it. And he mentioned about ancillary systems. Obviously, we are not going to do everything with FIS core system, right? There are so many third-party systems. The interfaces, whether you do by API or batch integration, we have to test it thoroughly and multiple times on those things. And another important thing is reporting, which is often forgotten. And people have confusion about reporting, what they were doing so far in the prior core to the future core. And that's another important thing. And the last but not least, the most important thing I would mention is how do you support your customers on conversion day one? That's an important aspect. That's a big lesson we learned, and then we fumbled upon a few things. We can talk in detail about those things. So these are the main areas I would focus on.
Thank you. You mentioned that you have carried out migration from Pfizer to IBS, which is very similar to migration that First Republic Bank is going through. I was wondering if there are, specific things that you would want them to be aware of, or specific things that you think we should pay attention to in the process of migrating from Pfizer to IBS. So we have spoken in generality. Let's bring a little bit more focus and context to what we are talking about.
Yeah. I'm not sure which Pfizer core FRB is migrating from, but we migrated from Pfizer signature core to FIS IBS. Like DK mentioned, it's like garbage in and garbage out, right? But we want to avoid that. In the sense, what I meant is in Pfizer, we did couple of acquisitions before we migrated to FIS. So there we squeezed in our SBA loan processing into a core that cannot handle that. That's one of the major reasons we wanted to move into an integrated platform, being a largest SBA lender, being a commercial banking more than a retail banking. We wanted to move to an integrated banking solution. That's why we chose FIS. So the data mapping would be the key. Irrespective of the core, any core is going to give you certain number of data sets, right? So FIS, kudos to FIS conversion team, they are great. And we have to pay attention during the readiness review, the data mapping exercise. And like DK mentioned, use this as an opportunity to clean up. We use this opportunity to clean up. The earlier, one of our acquisition, we gone through multiple iterations of cleanup, and it was messy. So we rectified a lot of those things in this conversion. Even though we have to go through the painful process, we were able to come out good. After a year, you sit back and look at it, what we made is the right decision, and then the reporting, data integrity is great with this new core.
Anything that we should watch out for in IBS?
I can touch upon a few things that I mentioned before. One of the things is the access provisioning, right? We had always in this in plan, but it is complex. The role-based access, the rack of process. We stumbled upon quite a bit until the last minute. I would certainly advise to give a very early on head start to work with your stakeholders, map each and every job role and function, what permissions they have to get in the new FIS core system. Because starting from overdraft limits to wire approval to accessing different parts of the application, it can get complex, and certainly it's going to come and bite back as when the audit is going to do the access reviews. So make sure that you thoroughly plan and do it early on in both your test bank and also in your production in entities. They call entity in FIS. So one downside what we had is we not only migrated to FIS, we actually integrated one of our acquired bank at the same time. The acquired institution was in FIS. We kind of migrated to their core, I would say, even though we wanted to do a complete migration. We did not completely start a fresh new bank in FIS. That is, and on hindsight, that's a bad decision from on our part. So that led to a lot of access issues, and we took so much time in cleaning up those. So that's one point I would say that you have to make sure that you are looking into it. And the next thing, we also looked into we also migrated our data document imaging system to FIS. I'm not sure whether FRB is going to do that. The document imaging solution is going to hold our signature cards, e-statements, all our cold reports. We migrated from our on-prem to FIS FCM platform. So our online banking also we migrated. Online banking used to use the e-statements, fetch that from the FCM. So we planned that's a mini migration by itself. So we have to have at least 2 years worth of statements and signature cards and everything migrated to that. So we have to plan it long ahead and go through this new system change. And it took a lot of time. For a week after conversion, we were still loading statements. Some of our customers had complaints on that. So one other thing is, obviously I mentioned about the third-party apps. We had our own general ledger system. Our finance team decided not to migrate to FIS general ledger system. And as I mentioned, the old bank that we acquired, the other bank, they were using a legacy GL. As part of this migration, FIS upgraded our general ledger to PeopleSoft, their finance application, which we are not going to use. But end of day processing happens in the PeopleSoft, and then we get our cutover to our in-house general ledger system. That gone through several hoops. Obviously everything got done, but there were confusion because there's 2 different conversions happening within that. If you are going through such general ledger conversion or using your own GL system, I would suggest to pay attention to that also. Even today, some of the treasury management GLs, there are some cleanup and updates being done by our finance system because we missed those things or we couldn't complete those things during conversion. The same thing applies to any third-party apps. We had a lot of third-party applications for BSA, AML compliance, and our accounts payable and other things. So there is feedback and forth happening, ACH files. A lot of these things you will not be able to test during conversion. Payroll, for example, payroll ACH couldn't be able to test it. So you should look for those things. However, you can mark it up in your test bank. You should mark those things in the test bank. The next important thing I would say is training. Again, training, right? We plan to conduct training in our training rooms. First thing is logistics. Beyond training, logistics. DK was mentioning about capacity, right? 30% more capacity. I assume that he also mentioned resources. Here, we had specialized conversion teams, but they're not 100% dedicated. Very few are 100% dedicated. They had their day job. So that puts stress and fatigue on people. One of the things is they are not able to go to the designated training site. That's a lot of travel from home to work and everything. So we last minute, IT had to set up training room in every major office location. Pretty much all conference rooms becomes training rooms. So you have to plan for that. So they can do their day job and then come for a 2-hour training, 4-hour training for each session, and then go back and to their desk and continue their job. So that's another important thing that I would suggest to take a look into. Yeah.
That's
so
wonderful.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So the next, I touched upon the customer support on conversion day one. That's a big change basically. So for a lot of our customers, and it based on your demography, right? A lot of people, online banking is that's not convenient or easy to convert a lot of our demographic customers. So that's a major issue that we faced on conversion day one. There are user ID changes, and the password changes that put a lot of people got locked out. And when we migrated to FIS, we migrated our online banking, consumer online banking, commercial online banking, and mobile banking also to FIS platform. There are two different demography, right? One, people who are technically not that savvy, and that's one challenge. People who are tech savvy, they don't use computers; they use mobile phone. But in order for you to use mobile app, you have to first sign in online banking. That's a requirement. So that we had a clear, nicely printed brochure and instructions and everything. In spite, people fumbled. Our call volume shot up, heavily. Our call center could not handle it. And then, we had a legacy call system infrastructure. We were in a PRI. We were not in SIP trunking. We were not able to scale the call volume. And pretty much our call center shut down for hours. So it was a bad publicity, for us, a reputation risk. I would make sure that you all, like DK mentioned, look all your options, channel, increase your bandwidth, and we are able to quickly react. We are able to forward the calls to FIS. We had plans, but we forwarded all the calls to FIS. We had FIS as a standby. They were able to take up calls, but already damage has been done. So it took some time for us to recoup that. That's another important thing. I heard about Big Bang, and we were also went Big Bang. We closed our branches on a Saturday, and then we did convert all the applications, tested Saturday, Sunday, and especially for the incoming acquired bank, we ought to replace all computers, migrate our emails. Hopefully that's not the case in FRB. But Sunday we tested it. Of course, you cannot test everything in a real production bank. So you have to look for that also.
So we're also getting some questions from the audience, Raj, and
Sure,
I want
sure.
to share with you. One of the questions is there anything to watch out for during the core cutover or recurring transactions, standing instructions, things like that comes to mind when you think about this conversion program?
If you can, when you say core recurring transaction, what do they mean? Like ACH transfers or postings, automatic postings?
People have set up some, some transactions on a monthly basis to transfer to.
Correct. Yeah. Bill payments, other things. Those things were cut over for us. It has been taken care of. If you have a ACH transfers or bill payments, those have been taken care as part of the conversion. Though we were not able to test it during that, those have been taken care of.
Okay. Okay, so one of the risks in any of these conversions is the timeline for the whole project being a massive thing, and invariably, there are number of change requests that come with respect to the new system. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, so one of the thing is what is the art of limiting customization when you're trying to implement off-the-shelf package, right?
Sure.
In my experience, and you can reflect on it, but in my experience, one of the things that helped us a lot during such transformation is to actually define the process using the new system. So you actually have a process documentation for key processes. You can't do 100% of process, but the top 50 process, whatever that you select. And if you have that, then people don't ask for things like, I used to have this report, I don't get this in the new system. That kind of request doesn't come in, right? During user testing or training or whatever. So what are your advice? What are your pointers to actually limiting the customization that one can do so that the cutover or the core transformation becomes a smoother process?
Sure, sure. Great. That's a good question. So one thing we did is basically we engaged FIS for a business process improvement initiative before conversion. They reviewed our current processes in back office, and then they came up with what are best practices improvements that can be done. So from that exercise, we identified which of those improvements we are going to do as part of customization, as part of the conversion, and then we limited, that. And it's an ongoing exercise, right? Anything that we tabled at the conversion, we slowly got back to those things we are doing. We are still working on improving the system and processes. So that I would suggest, they have a great team that does the business process improvement analysis, or you can do, if you have a third party that who can do it, you can come up with a list and then limit it. And yeah, but we pretty much used, even though we wanted to do a lot of improvements, especially online banking, and then we wanted to provide online account opening at the time, but we did not pursue during the conversion. We limited everything. We are pursuing one by one. So one thing I wanted to mention that we did not, we missed it is reporting. You mentioned, right? There was a confusion on reporting. FIS obviously provided all the business process reports, nicely documented, but we didn't have. This is the report one that we used in Pfizer, and this is the equivalent report. We didn't have that kind of a mapping given to people, and people are stumbling upon for day two processing even after conversion. And either one thing is either that issue or like DK mentioned, we did not there's not a lot of not enough data set tested during our readiness reviews, what they call as readiness review. So output of reports did not have quality data when we did that testing. So we should have dedicated teams who can do data entry during the test system, so you can get all these reports and then also prepare a mapping document. Report A in Pfizer is report B, this report in FIS. Obviously, there's going to be differences that we have to make sure that it's being worked on. Yeah.
There's one more audience question, Raj.
Mhm.
This is with respect to what would be some best practices while migrating external integrations? Obviously, core banking has many integration to third-party systems or even third-party payment gateways, many
Sure,
things.
sure.
How-
So
what are
we
the
did
best?
not be. Yeah, so we did not. Luckily, we did not had. I don't know whether luckily I should say, but we did not have any API integration. Most of our third-party integrations are batch file processing. So I mentioned, right, we didn't have quality data that impaired providing quality output or data file for the downstream systems. So in our data warehousing team, our internal business intelligence team had to mark data and then provide it in the format. And another thing I would like to highlight is the data team was not closely involved with the core conversion team, which was doing the data mapping exercise. So we didn't have the end-to-end data mapping. That's another important thing. We didn't have core system A, the old core system, to new core system of data warehouse. FIS data warehouse is big. We use that heavily today, and we didn't have that end-to-end mapping. That hindered that. I would suggest that from day one, engage your data team who's providing this third-party integration in the mapping exercise, and then add enough data sets into your test bank or training bank, and then get it. And so I think, like you might have API integration. DK touched upon Code Connect. Code Connect is their RESTful API, but they have a legacy API application called ConnectWare. There are still some gaps, and I hear there are. We don't use it. We are just going to use it for our online account opening process. But I hear there are gaps in loan APIs in the new Code Connect APIs. RESTful APIs. So you have to go through the documentation. They have a sandbox, you can test it. And their legacy API, if you're deciding to use the legacy API, that has to go through your bank private VPN. They don't allow direct connection. You have to be aware of that. Code Connect, if you're using the modern API, then you have a third-party agreement. If that ancillary app is not your in-house or in your data center, you have to have a third-party agreement with them. And so the Code Connect, it's maturing, it's a modern, but still, I don't think there's a lot of adaptability. A lot of companies, a lot of banks have started to using it, so you might stumble upon, but I suggest to use Code Connect. That's where all their investment is going on. So try early on, and start using that. That's what I would suggest.
Thank you. And, DK mentioned about the need for a business sponsor and the whole management, accountability and owning the problem as a team. Obviously, any such large program requires a lot of cadence and governance around it to ensure that everything is, there are many moving pieces that are going on. There is customer communication, there's regulatory communication, there's many things that happen. What, in your experience, the kind of governance and cadence that helped in enhancing this success of this program?
Certainly, yeah. That's very important. Governance and added log, these are all very important piece of it. Right from the decision-making process to go with FIS IBS, we had a core executive team that was closely involved, right from our CEO to CFO, and then we constantly kept our board also updated on this. Every board meeting we kept updated our board on this. But when it comes to the governance, we had an executive sponsor, and who retail head was the executive sponsor, and then our CFO. We were all part of the governance committee. We met regularly. And then we had the added log, and key decisions were made then and there. And so we kept everybody informed and keep the project moving. So there are multiple levels, right? You have an executive sponsor and steering committee that made project level and program level decisions. And then myself and the operations head, we co-led this project. Under us, we had action team leads. So there was constant communication. And then our PMO was involved. Program level, and then for individual tracks we had PMs. So there is every level we had cadence and communication from a person who's from retail who's doing a transaction testing all the way to the board. We had a clear communication channel. We had added log, everything. We didn't wait. We don't wait for the weekly governance committee if something is burning. So we made decisions and move on, and we give freedom to people at every level to make certain level of decisions to keep the project moving.
Yeah.
Obviously, all these things are tracked and then reported for board and also for auditors.
Right. And I think the balance between, independence and taking some decisions and keeping that dependency on different systems together is always a challenge. But, right, in terms of moving things forward in an agile manner, you need to empower some of the teams that are running with you. So the other aspect that that we addressed, and you did too, in terms of the data, right? There are two parts to the data. One is the mapping of the data from the old system to the new system and the migration process. At the same time, like DK mentioned, archiving and keeping your old data in some accessible format, so that if you get a regulatory inquiry or some legal issue that you need to go back to the old data, you're still able to go back. Is there any lessons that you want to share with the audience with respect to data migration, data archival, etc.?
Sure, certainly. So in our old Pfizer system, one of the reasons is they don't have data warehouse or a good way of reporting. So it's all legacy cold reports. That's our only source. Even before migration, but we had access to the core database, and on a night they have backup of the core database in a set of mainframe tables. We took a complete dump even before the conversion. We brought it to a local data mart in raw format, and we loaded everything, inside our data mart. And same thing we did the day before the cutover, and then we had loaded into our data mart into just raw tables, and we wanted to keep it for future references. And beyond that, people want the old information accessible immediately. So some critical information. So those we created another data mart and internal reporting system provide easy query access for looking into the customer information. So that's one way for readily accessibility. And obviously, we had our cold reports that's in our document management system. That's still, we keep it based on a retention policy, 5 years, 7 years, whatever it is, right? That's accessible also. And obviously, if you want to use the cold report, we have screen scraping tools to get data out of it. Like Monarch is one of the tools that we heavily use to do screen scraping. So those were there, so that way we were able to get the data. I touched upon the data old core report versus new core report. This is primarily the end of day operational report that comes out of the core system. One thing I wanted to reiterate is FIS has a good, robust data warehouse that use in an Oracle, multi-dimensional data warehouse, and it provides business objects as a querying tool. I will leverage them. Of course, they are still working on other modern way of reporting, but at least when it comes to access to data, you will get rich data set that's easily queryable. I would suggest to start building your new reports from day one on that. So that's a new platform for us. We built certain reports, but management level reports, it took us almost a year for us to complete all the reports. Because, one is the mapping issue. Our team was not involved in the mapping. Second thing is priorities, right? We didn't have a small team, and we didn't have enough people resources to complete. On a hindsight, FIS has consulting services. We did leverage them only for some critical reports. You can engage them for further work. And I'll also strongly recommend train your teams in the FIS big data warehouse. I assume you're going to use. They have deposits, loans, whatever application you are going to migrate to. They have separate catalogs for those things. You can train your people. They can start building the report as they do that training on whether the core deposit application or teller application. They can also start building the reports and see then and there, all those things. I would suggest that also.
Thank you, Raj. I think we have discussed quite a bit, and there've been very good inputs to the team. Core migration is a stressful and very intense activity, but at the end of the day, as you mentioned, it's a very, very rewarding journey. Even today, I look back at the migrations that I've done. While at that point in time you were like very stressed, 5 years down the line, you will be very happy that you did it. And I'm sure the First Republic Bank will benefit a lot from this migration as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate your inputs.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much, and good luck to the FRB team. And you'll come out well when you complete this. You'll be happy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm handing it over, Ryan. Back to you.
Thank you, Sri and Raj, for that great conversation. And I wanted to thank the audience as well for sending in your questions and staying engaged today. At this point in the program, we are now going to ask everyone to head back to the main lobby and then visit the exhibit hall. There you'll be able to explore 4 different demo breakout rooms focused on data, tools, integration, and testing automation. Once you visit the booth, there will be a link to click for a live demo on the right-hand side of your screen. Please click that when you get there. We will give everyone a few minutes to head over to the exhibit hall now and get settled for the demo of your choice. See everyone soon. Thank you.